All right, good morning, Les. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. Welcome to Storm Talk on this, Friday Eve here on this 19th of October. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm with meteorologist Brian Good. Blog update today where we have a chance to go over the current setup, how things are going to evolve today, the wind for the weekend. I'll explain next week's scenario. And, of course, I got to give you guys a little bit of long-term nuggets as well, data. And today it'll be Halloween. That'll give you some of the data on here in just a second. As always, you guys comments, I think you've already figured it out by now. YouTube, Twitter, as well as Facebook. You guys have an opportunity to comment there. If you're watching, by the way, on the streaming side, that's the only way you can. So just FYI, everyone's always in the mist in the sun. We had one day of sunshine. But you know what? This weekend, I do think we'll feature quite a bit of sun. It's just going to be quite a bit windy, too. I'll have more on that in just a second. All right, let's get you out to where there's just a hint of sun right now. Oh, wait a minute. Ooh, plane just landed there. Sorry, I always have to show the airport flight. UPS just landed on 17 right. Nice little puff of smoke there. Looking good for all the flights on one of the longer runways we have in the region because of UPS. Okay, anyway, as I was saying, down into Bardstown, you had a nice little sunrise this morning. A lot of pinks were showing up in the sky as the cloud shield was overtaking the area. For now, most of you are now overcast, if not even dealing with a little bit of light rain. So any hint of a beautiful sunrise is fading away fairly quick there for this morning. So the radar is starting to light up. Now, before I get to that, one thing that the south wind has been doing during the night while you've been asleep is to allow temperatures to increase. We I believe have only been below 60 at this point in the day so far is right now. For the most part, we've been around 60 all night long. So relatively mild in the city limits, but that south wind, much warmer scenario than we had 24 hours ago. But you guys are already fully aware of that if you're watching from work or just now or waking up. The good news is you don't have to worry about freezing walking outside. But here comes the rain. Now, it is struggling on the southern side. Modeling did a very good job actually picking out on how this would disintegrate more on the southern flank and then hold together overall across Indiana. That looks to be the case. Notice it is trending more north than it is east, so there is a slight delay. I think here in Louisville, it's roughly going to be about 2 hours to get it fully into here. So more than likely during the midday show, more than likely when I'm outside in the weather garden in about 2 hours, it'll be raining, but it'll be a light rain, a little steadier rain across Indiana, but near Louisville and south, it will be a lighter rain scenario. But the wind is going to start to ramp up as soon as that little batch of showers moves in. The wind speeds will go up, and they'll be gusty at times all the way through this afternoon. And some of the gusts could easily get to 30, 32 miles per hour, somewhere in that range. So the wind will get your attention today, blowing around some of these leaves moving through the area, but just be aware of that. But this is just one piece of another that's going to be moving in as we know later on for this afternoon. That second piece is still attached to the main low, which is across areas of Illinois. Doesn't seem like much now, but watch the southern side of that. That is when it has a chance to get a little closer to I-65. The moisture feed will react. You got to keep in mind the flow in the system so far has been a southwest flow. It's trying to pull moisture in from the Rocky Mountains. There's not a lot to work with in the Rocky Mountains. It needs the Gulf of Mexico to try to pull up moisture. And there's such a big drought going on in the deep south that there's not as much moisture as you normally would get from a flow coming in, even from gently from the southwest across to anywhere from Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, because they're just bone dry in that area. But as the system gets closer to us and gets very close to I-65, that's when the wind will be a little more south in all layers of the atmosphere. And once that kicks in, you're going to end up then dealing with quick reaction. The radar will then quickly enhance right on top of us, which makes placement and timing a bit of a challenge on when the second round will develop and move through, because anytime you're dealing with developing of anything, whether it's snow showers, snowstorm, or showers in this case, and rain and thunder, it takes a bit of time to kind of get that to react. So we usually try to give a buffer of about 1 to 2 hours. But in general, the evening commute is most likely to feel the impacts of that as it begins to pop on the radar. And I'll show you an example in just a second. Not expecting severe weather. However, because this is a fairly strong system as far as being sheared out, a lot of wind aloft here to work with, all you have to do is get tall showers. They could have some lightning and thunder, but that's not important. Even a tall shower along some of these lines that move in later on this afternoon, evening, can tap into that stronger wind field, which is not very high off the ground at all, and force the wind down. So you can get gusts that could go over 40 miles per hour or up to 45. Right now, we're thinking that's going to be closer to I-75 than I-65. That potential would be seen, but again, not to quite to severe limits, but kind of an odd scenario. We deal with this a lot in the cold season time of year when you deal with embedded lightning and thunder and a band of showers, but a lot of wind energy, but not enough fuel to create a very noisy thunderstorm as far as lightning and thunder and tornadoes and all that such. This is more of a setup where gusty winds and the heavier showers will be noted. Okay, so here is Futurecast. We're good until about 4 to 5 o'clock. I don't see much happening. Again, we're waiting for that low to get a little closer to us. So the first band of rain that's pushing in now through the midday show will move east. It'll continue to disintegrate. But once the second batch moves in, it will then have a chance to get a full-on flow and inflow right in from the Gulf of Mexico into our backyards. At that point, the radar should begin to react, and then the downpours will pop on the radar. Now you're getting some yellows and some reds that are showing up, indicating a heavier rainfall rate. Now, while this is good, this is only about a quarter to maybe a half inch we're talking about in areas that see some of those yellows and oranges there. Most of you will not see that level of intensity, so therefore rainfall amounts are going to be the exception rather than the rule on the quarter to half inch, but it's possible. And as you can tell, Kentucky stands a higher chance than Indiana does on seeing this reaction develop this afternoon, just because of where you're at in geography on how this evolves moving off to the east. So overall, the rain chance, again, will begin to spike probably 70, 80% across Kentucky, but only about a 30% or so for areas of Indiana, at least for this potential round. Once this wave of rain and thunder moves to the east, there will be general showers that will keep filling in that flow. They'll just be on the cooler side of the system, if you will, coming in more from the northwest across Indiana. So it will be a bit showery throughout the night tonight into early on Saturday. And then on Saturday, we wait for the clipper that will dive down across Chicagoland. It'll start there in Chicagoland, and then it'll sweep on down as we get into the afternoon and evening hours right across Ohio. At the moment, I don't see any rain getting this far south because of the angle of attack here. We'll keep it rain mainly to the north, but the wind gradient right where the sun goes partly sunny, right on the southern side of its track, that is where your strongest of wind would be. And this is all about timing. If this was an overnight scenario, we wouldn't be talking about high wind at all. But with it passing through during the time when the sun is going to be out, roughly 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Time period, that is when there's going to be enough what we call the mixing that's going to happen. There's going to be a nice pressure gradient developing, and the winds will begin to increase, even with a lot of clear sky and sunshine to be had out there. In fact, some of the winds, the latest numbers, down a bit on Saturday at 29, 30 miles per hour. But some of the newer models that are coming in now for midday are back up to 35 to almost 40 miles per hour, especially the more north you travel into Indiana. Those higher gusts can be a little more realized. So if you have any outdoor plans, You got the tents set up for a fall festival, an event, anchor them down good. Your inflatables, you don't want, like in my case, I don't want my Michael Myers inflatable to be flying down the street. That'll terrify someone. Make sure they anchor down really good, or just unplug them. Unplug them. They don't need to be inflated anyway during the day, right? I mean, I know a lot of people do that now because it just looks really weird. That is the creepy thing about inflatables, is the deflated part all day. They're cool at night, but during the day, it's just like, what's going on here in this yard? Anyway, if you're able to keep them deflated, just so they don't tumble away. And that's really true for today as well. Today and Saturday, there's 2 days where that would be a little more at risk. Would you say, Angie, I think I've had enough of the windy days for the year? We did. March and April, by far, one of the top 2 wind events that we really have seen in quite some time in our area, with the third really being Ike, to be honest, leftovers of Ike. So pretty remarkable spring, but it's been quiet for the summer. Other than severe thunderstorms in June and July, it's been relatively easy going for us. August, September, and so far much of October. So these wind events, while normally, especially in the spring, a 30-mile-per-hour wind day, we're like, it's 30 miles per hour, we'll be fine. Would not get our attention, but it's been a while, so it's that time of the year we'll get back into the windy season. So yeah, get used to that once again. Hopefully we don't see that keep repeating, but I think it will, the way it's looking. Brenda, how much rain are we talking about? Again, hopefully it just depends on where you're at. I'm not sure your location, but again, if you're in Kentucky, you do have a chance to get at least a quarter to half inch. Indiana, less than a quarter of an inch of rainfall. All right, so that's the system that gets us through today all the way through the weekend there. It's 2 separate systems, but there's your main weather elements. Temperatures generally in the 60s, although Saturday, because of that clipper moving in, it wouldn't surprise me the wind would allow, especially good mixing there in the atmosphere. We could see temperatures easily 70 to 75 on Saturday. So there could be a bonus warm day on Saturday, but it'll be so windy, it won't feel like it. Okay, so as we evolve into next week, we get this system out of the way. The clipper moves on by. Boom, there it goes. There is still that weak little lift there into Missouri. Still not worried about showers here. We're going to keep that out of the forecast. Meanwhile, here is Tammy, soon to be Hurricane Tammy, moving through the Antilles. Will turn sharply into the Atlantic. Overall, no major impact that I see in our weather pattern with that moving on by. Meanwhile, the Rockies really ramp up as the, and I said Max yesterday, thanks Les for pointing out, I was said on the previous storm, it's Norma, which is a major hurricane now. Norma is going to weaken rapidly, but its moisture will help feed certainly the showers and thunderstorms, at least for a couple of days into the plains. What we call a very tight baroclinic zone is going to develop, where you deal with a lot of warm air that is across areas of the southern United States, especially. Eventually, it will cool down across the Ohio Valley, northern part, but overall, very warm in our area of the country, 70s, touching 80, and then cold weather with snow in the Rockies, perhaps even getting closer to blizzard conditions in a couple of spots there. So quite the impressive snow event. But here's the issue for the latter half of the week. High pressure here is very strong, all right? That is going to fight back any eastern progression this front is going to try to do. So any system that tries to attack us can't go directly through wave country. It has to move in from the west and then go around us and then go up here to Maine. So because of that, our rain chance for next week is likely going to be delayed for a bit until we figure out when the high will begin to break down, and that would allow the boundary to move in, and it may end up being more horizontal of a sinking boundary than it is more of a vertical type north-south boundary moving through. But what is interesting is really what's happening beyond this point. And that takes us a little closer to Halloween. There will be yet another tropical system that may very well take a very similar track to what Tammy is doing. If that happens, there is an opportunity to really pump up the ridge a little more here into the Western Atlantic and the Eastern Seaboard. That would then help in driving down this batch of chilly and cold air down into at least the mid-latitudes, perhaps down to about I-40, I-64 zone. So roughly our area. I don't know if it's going to be able to push much further south than that, but there will be the yin-yang effect where the tropical influence will push the ridge up in the Atlantic. We then get the opposite reaction here locally. I don't think the models have settled just yet on how cold it could potentially get toward Halloween, but I do think a chilly, at the very least, blast of air would be coming into play. I'll show you the maps in just a second. Here's where we stand right now in the 10-day. We've got the 60s today, rain, wind, there's that jump in the 70s there on Saturday with wind. Sunday looks beautiful if you're going to Making Strides, by the way, for a breast cancer walk that's taking place there at Slugger Field. That looks good, and it'll be cooler. It'll be cooler than Saturday, so keep that in mind. Next week, boom, there you go, the 70s. The reason why it doesn't get as warm later in the week as you would think, normally getting closer to a front, is that the front, again, is going to be sinking by late week. So we'll have an increase in clouds, maybe a few showers. So the best potential to get a warm, sunnier day will likely be Tuesday or Wednesday, one of those two. Once the front sinks down, then we'll see the 60s and then 50s come into play. Now, looking at the Euro ensembles, they certainly for Halloween want to drop down the colder air. It's a little bit slower than GFS, but you get the idea. It wants to sink it down the area to allow for, I would say, highs in the 50s for Halloween. I know some of the modeling has been trying to throw out the S word for Halloween. I do not see that happening right now, only because the idea of the cold air going east and not south does make sense because the NAO is not overly negative. One of the oscillations we look at, it's not overly negative. So it makes sense this thing's probably going to track more east. But we'll see. But no doubt it will, a strong signal here that Halloween's not going to be warm. As it stands now, there's a strong signal against it. So I don't know how cool yet or how chilly it will be for Halloween, but a chilly scenario is likely. That's the Euro ensembles. Here's the GFS. You'll see it just a little bit faster on bringing it in for Halloween and a little bit deeper, too, compared to what the Euro does. But again, no doubt that is a colder signal. After that, I do think we're going to go dramatically back and forth in November. I'm watching mid-November for anything that could be a little bit on the colder side on a significant signal. But you're going to have to wait on that, of course. All right, so here's the reason why. Don't forget, the Halloween night, the winter forecast is going to be coming out. The reason why I'm saying that is that this is going to be my last blog update for several days. I'm going to be out, so I will not be back until we get right up to the point of Halloween and the winter forecast. I know. So it's probably a good thing. You probably don't want me to keep talking about the long term and holding back at the same time because I can't just tell you everything. So this is probably good that I'm going to be quiet for a while. But don't forget, it'll be out Halloween night at some point during trick-or-treat time. I can't tell you the time. It's a secret. But it'll hit the Wave Weather app first, and then it'll be out on the blog form. Angie, you're asking about the video blog. The game planner right now is the app will likely include the snow outlook. I will likely have a written version of the winter forecast. I feel like it's just a little easier sometimes to put that out, but more than likely at some point during that week when I do the normal blog, I will likely talk about the winter forecast in more detail. So we'll have time to discuss it. And just a reminder, the title of the blog as of the first day of November will be Snow Talk, even if it's going to be warm. It'll be Snow Talk. That's the title for the whole season. I get picked on every time. I'm like, why is it Snow Talk? There's no snow coming. That's just the title change. You guys are used to that. It's been that way for 13 years. So get ready for that. But again, Halloween night, and I will be back that week. We'll talk a little more about it right before we get to the forecast, but I just want to make sure you guys are not too stressed out. Plus, besides, you don't want me talking about the winter forecast when you got 70s all for next week. So you guys relax, take it easy, take a load off, enjoy the fall weather and warm weather that's coming our way next week, and we'll touch base whenever I'm back. All right. I'll be back on midday, so don't forget that coming up at 11 a.m. I'm sure out into the kind of the drizzly, rainy weather garden. I'll see you guys then in just a couple hours. Take care.